It's already recording. Awesome. So hi everybody, welcome. My name is Kristen Sevilla. I am the wellness coordinator here in BRSSD, and wellness is a very wide umbrella, and nutrition falls under it. And I am extremely grateful that I have Catherine Reese, our business services specialist, but I also call her our nutrition queen. Just leading all things nutrition in the district. So you want to go to the next, there we are. So today's agenda is very quick, very simple and straightforward. We're going to do a program overview of our nutrition program, and then at the end, if none of your questions have been answered, you can ask some questions, and there'll be an opportunity to provide some feedback on our nutrition program. We're also very lucky to have some folks from Lunch Masters. We have Don Davis here, and our CBO, Reese Matsumoto from BRSSD. And I know we have some of our nutrition clerks on here, parents. It's a great group. So thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to pass it over to Catherine.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And thanks for joining us today. I am Catherine Reese. I'm with our business services team, and business services here at BRSSD covers a few different pillars. So our food, our nutrition program, facilities, construction programs, and general maintenance, working closely with our maintenance team, and then finance, so working with the district and school budgets. And so one of the things that we're really excited, one of the hats that I like to wear is our nutrition services director. So a few years ago, California passed this universal meals law. And just so we're all aligned, all students, regardless of family's ability to pay, can eat free breakfast and lunch at school every day. And just this week, the California Department of Education was reaffirming that regardless of what happens with federal changes, California plans to keep funding this program, and it's been funded through the rest of this school year. I wanted to share a bit more about our program goals, and then talk a little bit more about how we're measuring success and opportunities for improvement. And so we're really excited to have you all here today. I think first and foremost, we see this as an opportunity to address food insecurity in the Belmont and Redwood Shores communities. Sometimes the meals we're serving for breakfast and lunch might be the meals that students have, the only meals students have for that day, and we take that really seriously. But we also recognize that overall, this is an opportunity to destigmatize the former label of free meals. And so it's great to see that we can provide free meals to all students and meet all students where they're at. I think as stewards of public funds, we also see it as our duty to ensure compliance with federal and state programs, since that is the funding mechanism that makes this all possible. And then I think beyond sort of federal regulations, we really want to figure out what works for our students, our teachers, our families, our nutrition clerks, our community, in partnership with Lunch Masters. And so we, in the spirit of continuous improvement, we're really excited to give you a little more background and then open this up for discussion and hear what's top of mind for you. One of the things we really value is equity and making sure that everyone at our district is getting what they need. So whether it's making sure students are receiving meals in a non-stigmatized way, or students with allergies, or students. Hi, if you could just mute yourself. Thanks for joining.
Receive meals in a non-sway.
Okay. So I just, through the lens of equity, I think we think about making decisions in that way. And one thing that we're really grateful for is that when universal meals came around, our district really focused on adopting a breakfast in the classroom model as a way to make sure that we're offering breakfast in a school setting after the bell, to avoid putting any extra burden on families or students from having to get to school before the bell. And we're really grateful for the teachers and nutrition clerks and families who all make this possible, the parent volunteers as well. to help us be able to serve breakfast in the classroom for all of our students. When we think about how we measure our progress towards like success, one of the statistics we're really happy to see is that since moving to Lunch Masters this year, we've seen much increased engagement in school meals. And so this is comparing last September to this September. And we really see this also as an indicator that we're destigmatizing free meals because everyone wants to eat meals at school. Digging a level deeper, we also are mindful of the students who specifically qualify for free or reduced price meals based on the federal income guidelines. And so when we look specifically at a population of students in our community who are eligible for free and reduced price meals, we also see that those students are participating more in school lunch this year, which we see as a great indicator of our partnership with Lunch Masters. So before I hand this over to our Chief Business Official, Reese Matsumoto, I just wanted to also again reiterate, all students get free breakfast and lunch at school, but if you think your family may qualify based on your income and your household size, we also encourage you to apply. For this year, a family of 4 will qualify for free or reduced price meal status if they make a combined income of $59,478 $78 per year or less. And again, we see this as an opportunity to help connect families. If this sounds like something you might be eligible for, please go to our website. You can now apply online and in multiple languages, just using the top left to translate the page to a different language, but it's an opportunity to get connected with things like free Samtrans bus passes or subsidized tuition to our Extended Learning Opportunities program at BRSSD, also known as ELOP. And so I will hand it over to Reese, but if you have any questions, feel free to email us at meals@brssd.org.
Thanks, Catherine. Catherine, could I actually have you go back 2 slides real fast? I just kind of wanted to comment on this slide very quickly. I think, again, one of our core centering values here, right, is that we want this program to, have an equitable lens, right? And again, meaning that the services are rendered to the students that need it the most. So when I look at a chart like this, right, and I see that the number of free and reduced price lunch students eating at lunch has gone up by, a relatively significant amount. I think that's something that, we as a program take a lot of great pride in. Again, that's our mission, and this is kind of just one of the small data points that we see, to kind of prove that we're moving in the right direction. So, a lot of this and a lot of the credit goes to the nut clerks who, administer the meals every day, Catherine, and also Lunch Masters who, has helped us really make sure that the food is both nutritious and appealing to all the students to eat every day. So thanks for that, Catherine. You can go back a few slides. So again, hi everyone. I'm Reese Matsumoto. I'm the Chief Business Officer here. The next part I kind of want to just talk to very quickly is, what we're thinking about as we move forward as a nutrition program here, right? So, before we can kind of get to all the different things that, we think about from a high level, unfortunately or fortunately, there's a number of constraints that we have to deal with. So one of those being all the laws that we have to follow. As you might have guessed, the school nutrition program is one that has a lot of red tapes and rules to follow. And, for the most part, that's a very good thing, right? And make sure that we have consistency in, the standards of which we provide food, and make sure there's consistency on the vendor side to, ensure that everything is being packed properly. There's nutrition standards to make sure that we're serving the correct amount of calories and protein and fats per week. So all these things get taken into account when we have the full nutrition program. But the long story short is we have to follow it. Next slide, please. So ultimately, you may have heard, or, for the parents out there, your students may have come back to you saying, hey, why do I have to take a milk every day? Or, could I just not take the apple? And just for your knowledge, we actually do not get reimbursed if a student does not take all the parts of a meal. So please keep that in mind the next time your student comes to you saying, "Oh, I don't really like my apple," or, I don't appreciate that, they keep asking me to take this portion of the school meal. All of our nut clerks are aware of this, and, they do a great job in making sure that our students take all of these different components of a meal to make sure that we get as much of a reimbursement as we can for these foods. Next slide, please. The other thing you may have a question about is why are we using disposable packaging? Um, as of right now, we do not have the facilities and infrastructure to make food in-house. And, you may say, oh, we have kitchens at Central or we have a kitchen at Nesbitt. Why can't that be the case? Well, again, unfortunately, there's a lot more regulations about what's actually required in a space to be able to scratch cook, right? And so this is one of the things that we'll likely be addressing with the bond program that's coming up to give us the greatest flexibility as possible. And also, if I had to just be very honest right now, it makes the most sense, both from kind of a meal intake and the number of kids eating standpoint to actually work with a third party vendor like Lunchmaster. So again, we hear comments about people potentially wanting to move to scratch food, but at this point, Lunchmasters gives us the best option for what we currently have and the facilities we currently have, and we're extremely thankful that they're a great partner to us in all this. Next slide. So thinking about kind of, the long-term levers out here, right? There's kind of three, if I had to be honest with you. One of it is financial sustainability. Ultimately, our food program has not historically run at a net neutral, right? And what that means is we are not necessarily bringing in as much money through reimbursements as we are potentially having to subsidize this a little bit with the general fund dollars. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It all goes in the service of making sure that we're providing meals to all students at all times if they want to eat regardless of their status. But it is an area that, we're trying to get better at and improve. I think although it may not ever get to the point where we're at net neutral or maybe even running a surplus in, the school nutrition fund, we would like to get as close as possible. And, just coming back to the point we were talking about earlier with why it's important for all kids to take the correct components of a meal, the more appropriate reimbursements that we can get, the more money it means for the program, which means we can get closer to net zero on this. Next slide. The other part that we're thinking about is greater environmental sustainability. So as we talked about, we have the different packaging. We've been working with Lunchmaster to try and get different types of packaging out there, different types of materials used for utensils to, help make that more sustainable. So believe us, it's not lost on us. But there's also a few ways that you can help. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, on this list, but from a high level standpoint, I think, reinforcing to your students or your children that it's important for them to, take pride in being environmentally sustainable. I think it's helpful. We have classes and teachers that also have championed this for the district as well. And they do a number of things such as having students, the older students in the school go to a lunch line and encourage kids to put things in the right bins when it comes time to, toss away their different napkins and their forks, etc. But ultimately, I think this is something that we also want to improve, not just from like a you know, being better for the planet standpoint, but also just trying to set the appropriate model shift for other districts out there. Next, please. And probably the most important part of this is feedback, right? So this is feedback from students. This is feedback from parents like yourselves. This is feedback from our nut clerks. This is even feedback from from Lunchmaster, our third party vendor here. It's extremely important for us to get a feel for what's going on actually on the ground. Catherine and I have gone out to a few classes actually over time, and we've actually listened to the students. The students are incredible. They put together a presentation for us and they talk about, hey, this is a meal that I really enjoyed, or this part, is not working for me in line. And they've brainstormed. So a big shout out to Katie Marsh's class at Nesbitt. I think they're just doing a fantastic job being good stewards of our lunch program as well, our meals program as well. Next slide, please. And, to kind of wrap most of this up, this is not at all possible without kind of the strength of our nutrition clerk team. So I just wanted to shout them out very quickly. So we have Shauna, Daniel, Marshall, next slide, Brandon, Nyla, next slide, Stefania, Blanca, and Olivia. So, I would also like to just express here that the nutrition clerk job is not easy. Um, Again, they're making sure that students receive the correct components of a meal. They're getting there early to make sure they're counting all the meals that we're getting the correct amount for a given day. They're putting the milk out on the line. They're collecting all the cards at the end to ensure that, we're getting reimbursed properly for all of these meals. It's an incredibly tough job, and yet, all the time we hear stories of our nut clerks going the extra mile. We have some nut clerks that cut up oranges for kids because some of the kids come back to them and they say, "Oh, I'm having a hard time peeling this orange." And some of our nut clerks will go above and beyond and peel those ahead of time. It's a lot of unsung work, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't spend a little bit of time thanking them for all of their effort here. And also, I wanted to shout out a few people I see kind of in the audience here. So we have Esther and Wen, who have constantly been, kind of good stewards of their own campuses and championing both, better kind of solutions for our meals program and also on the sustainability side. So I wanted to just also shout them out as well for all of their work and for all of their efforts in looking out for the best for our kids in the district. So generally, again, that's kind of what we're thinking of from a high level, but I wanted to pass it back over for the feedback session here.
Thank you so much, Catherine and Reese, for giving us such a comprehensive view of our nutrition program. And of course, thanks to all of our nut clerks, as we call them, our nutrition clerks, for just keeping our kids fed and happy so they can continue to learn. Really, for this next section, the feedback and the questions, when we're thinking of feedback, there's kind of these two buckets of, what is working well with our nutrition program and the changes, especially that we've made this year. And from your perspective, are there any areas for improvement? Next slide, please, Catherine. And just keeping in mind, we have a lot of different people here with different perspectives, and just a few things to help us keep this part of the Zoom organized and everybody getting a chance to speak up. So if you would like to speak up, come off mute and let us hear your voice. Just please raise your hand. And if you would like to drop your thoughts into the chat, you can also do that. And just keeping in mind that we have many people here and to be respectful of time and words. And so we can move things forward and hear your ideas and hear your questions so we can address them. All right. And please, please, please correct me if I pronounce any names incorrectly. But is that Alan or
Yeah,
Elan?
Alon. Yeah.
Alan, hello, welcome.
Hey, thank you. So I have three kids. That's the background. One of them is in Ralston, and then two in Central. So I had two questions. Well, one, congrats on the 29 or the 40 something percent. I think that's phenomenal. And this program is really, I think, mostly for those folks. I'm not in that group that is in need. So, like, knowing that background with my questions and comments. So one is about, I have two questions. One is about the breakfast. Um, I think that the nutrition of the breakfast, I'm looking at the February one, it is all breakfast cereal, cinnamon raisin bagel, like nothing there seems like something I would want my kid to start the day with, whether I can afford a breakfast or not. And I think maybe that's why it's stuck on 29%, even for those who are in need. So that is one. And then my second comment is about the lunch. In the past, I forget how many years ago, and this is probably before this law came out, that we need to provide food for everybody. There was a way to order in advance lunches for my kid with a pretty cheap, by the way, it was like $6 or something, something pretty low. Is there a way to create this mix where we do have a lot of families that are not in need and are happy to spend $6 or $10 or whatever can we keep that while maybe some of that is also to fund the folks who are in need and just raise the level of lunches, as well as guarantee my child on Thursday knows what she is getting? Because she's in stress that I'm going to stand in line. The line in Ralston, from what I understand, can be pretty long sometimes. And and the quality is food. At least my kids, maybe they're picky, but they're not happy with the lunch. So, is there a way to bring these two things back and not kind of lower it for everybody? Is what I feel happened when we moved from paid to all free. So yeah, those are, I guess, the two main feedbacks I had.
Thank you. So I heard two things. The first was that the selection of the breakfast items, was that
It's
what?
just not healthy. I'm looking at it
Okay.
now, and it's donut holes,
Okay.
cereal. It's not something we should give kids, I think.
Okay. Thank you. And then the question, Reese, is that a question for you to answer?
Yeah, so I mean, uh, there's two parts of this, right? I think the first question is on the nutrition of the breakfast. Believe us, not necessarily lost on us.
Yeah,
I think there's a number of breakfast cereals that are relatively sugary, and I think luckily Lunchmasters has brought in a different type of cereal that's a little less sugary as well. So hopefully that starts to solve a little bit of the issue. Although I see some nodding heads not in the correct
yeah,
direction.
it's still cereal.
Um,
We should
you
bring
know,
fruit and yogurt or something. I don't know, whatever. You
yeah,
understand my point, and I sounds
yeah,
like
I
you
get
agree
it.
with it. Yeah,
And the other thing that is important to kind of note here is the reimbursement rate for some of these foods is not very high, which leads into your second question, by
yeah,
the way. Right? So, generally, we're receiving anywhere between $3 to $4 a meal, just between breakfast and lunch. I'm not going to get into the specifics
yeah,
there.
mhm,
And that's ultimately not a crazy amount, right? So
yeah.
also, Lunchmasters are a little bit handcuffed in the kind of what they can produce for that unitary cost. Talking about, the ordering system and then also the, um, being willing to pay for additional lunches. The ordering system, does not necessarily work with how we order everything right now. Um, I'm blanking a little bit on what exactly happened a few years ago. I was not here at the time as to why
There
we
was a
switched.
menu where my daughter could see a week in advance or a month. I don't remember, and she picks sushi on Wednesday. Great, she knows on Wednesday she gets sushi. I pay $7. Everybody's happy. Yeah,
Uh, right, exactly. I know that there was an ordering system at one point. I forgot why necessarily it went away, and maybe the Lunchmaster team can talk about that a little bit more. But talking about the other point about paying more for meals, that's not an idea that's been lost on us either. Actually, one of our board members brought that up to
yeah.
us at a past board meeting as well. I think that's something that, we're willing to explore. Again, I think we just want to make sure that anything that we implement on that front, doesn't necessarily stigmatize other students, right? We don't want it to be implemented in a way where it's like one student gets sushi and the other student gets a ham sandwich, right? So,
100%.
again, I understand the feedback. I'm writing it down right now. That's something we'll take a look into a little bit more.
I think just by charging the other folks $7 or $8, even the folks the folks who do qualify should be able to pick from those and just not pay. So I'll pay $1 more, and my neighbor who can also afford it can pay $1 more, and we all get the same food, but just better. So I guess we're willing to subsidize more is I think what I'm hearing from me and my friends and from the comments. Thanks for all the support.
If I
And
could speak to the way the ordering system used to be, because
yeah,
I was assistant principal over at Sandpiper about 8 years ago when we had lunch masters and the ordering system. And that in and of itself had its own struggles and challenges too. One, students not being aware of what their parents ordered for them, not liking what their parents ordered for them, their parents wanting, a certain
yeah.
meal other than the other, than the other. I myself do not remember why we moved away from that system. But yeah, the kids do like the choice for sure.
And it was higher quality. I think we moved because of the new law in California that everybody needs to get lunch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of it is around just not reducing the burden on families of not having to order in advance, but knowing that there will still be a meal at school for them.
Yeah, so maybe it's worth looking, just so I'm not biased to specifically my kids, the participation rate back then, if it was higher than now, which I don't know what the participation rate is now, then probably we were happier back then. And if it is not breaking the laws of California, I think the mix here would make everybody happier. Like we need better food.
No, I appreciate.
And with $3, I don't blame you. With $3, like the only thing you can get is processed food. Like what $3 is nothing in California.
Yeah. No, appreciate you
Okay,
bringing
thank
that,
you.
taking notes, and we'll definitely be sure to follow up. I think I had seen a hand raised by David. So
Yeah.
David,
Thank you.
Oh,
I didn't
you
know
know
if you
what? I'm
wanted
so
anything
sorry,
to
Catherine. I
share.
have it
No, you're
actually
good.
down of like when people raise. So
Oh,
I'm going to go through that. So
great.
next up, I have Shruti.
Oh,
Well,
if I could
Kristen,
just,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. Since David's from Lunchmasters,
Oh,
I
I'm
thought he might
sorry.
be able to also comment on
I
that.
didn't see it.
Thank you.
Sorry,
No, you're all
David.
good.
I'm so sorry.
that's all right. Maybe we can have that cadence where it makes sense for me to, respond. I
Yes.
will. Hi, everyone. I'm the CEO at the Launchmaster. I'll try not to be redundant. Within the constraints of the program, what we try to do is hit taste, cost, nutrition, and affordability, right? And sorry, and your program constraints. And so one of the constraints your program has is the breakfast in the classroom, which makes it difficult to do anything hot. And if you want to deliver protein in a breakfast item, it typically is hot. There are higher protein cereals. The challenge with those, based on industry data, is that kids don't eat them, and then Reese has a program that's not sort of getting the reimbursement he wants. So it is a tricky balance to find what kids will eat, um, and what you'll get reimbursed for. We try to maximize what we can within the scope of the reimbursement. Obviously, I can't speak to the potential to up the contribution from a more affluent parents and fund that
Yeah.
back into the program. But one option would be to open up the ability to serve hot breakfasts, which tend to be less processed and tend to be more nutritious.
Shruti gave some good options in the chat for not hot. You can check.
And
Thank you.
before I pass it over to Shruti for her questions too, also to keep in mind for the breakfast options, they are eating these breakfasts in the classroom. And so we have to take that into consideration also of the messes that may be left behind or what needs to be cleaned up afterwards too. All right,
Can
Shruti.
it be some type of bar?
I'm sorry, Shruti.
Yeah, thank you
Hi,
so
thank
much for the
you.
session. And I understand the concerns, like who this program was initially meant and why there should be no bias or separating out kids. I agree with everything. But there is a second problem we are going to end up, which probably will not see till they even graduate. They are going to develop, God forbid, they should not develop anything, but this is what science says. If they're going to eat this sugary food, they're going to go into obesity, diabetes type 2. This is my primary concern. Nobody's tracking this data. Nobody has fun to track and show you the data, but it's all our kids. We have to be concerned and we need to strike a balance. Priority is to provide food to the kids who cannot afford, and this also brings them to school. I understand everything. And I'm happy to volunteer on the side offline and give notes or resources, and we can all together come up ideas. I'm not even talking about good fat, fiber, no, just bare minimum protein, a boiled egg. The other struggle some of the parents who are able to afford the price are struggling is I am forcing my child to have boiled egg, healthy wheat bread at home. And they're like, no, don't want to eat this. I'm going to have in school. And the answer is every other kid is eating. Why are you forcing me? I can force 1 day, 2 day. It's very hard. And I still understand the other kids who are not able to afford are the priority they should be. But other parents are having a different struggle. And I'm really concerned about their health. And I leave it here. I have lots of ideas. I just want to give a big shout out to one of the teachers at Cipriani. You may not be able to see, but some of you might be familiar that they showed this plate, which should have protein and other things. We can have a spin on this program where we are also teaching at least 1 day in a week. Today, we are going to have healthy breakfast. What you learned in your class now, when they see, and believe me, the teachers and the school and their friends have way, way more influence than parents. Whatever we say doesn't matter. What their friends do, what the teachers do, matters a lot. So, can we do something more creative there? I have lots of ideas, but I want to stop here and give other parents opportunity.
Thank you, Shruti. Let's see. Next up. Sorry, I lost my little thing here. All right, Alina. Would you
Yes.
like to come off mute?
I
Hi,
agree
Alina.
with everything that was said previously in terms of the health stuff, but my question, I guess, is more administrative. So I have a fifth and a first grader at Cipriani, and on the days that they do have a school lunch, sometimes my fifth grader would say, "Oh, they ran out of this option that I really wanted," because fifth graders are technically the last ones to come up, and the popular items like pasta, right, are always snatched first. And so she'd be like, well, I had to settle, for choice number two or whatever else was there. And then because she wouldn't necessarily want to eat it, she'd only have a portion of it and then kind of be hungry. And so that makes me sad. And I try to have more home packed meals for that reason. Should I work with the school principal to kind of have those items, increase the quality of those items, the quantity, excuse me, the number of the items? Or how do we want to try to solve that?
I can go on this one. I will just be extremely honest with you, Alina. I understand that problem and it's very tough. So ultimately what happens is our nutrition clerks, they are ordering the meals for every single day, right? And they are giving it their best estimates in terms of, what students are eating what and what they're seeing on a day-to-day basis, right? The issue with that, right, is, you have sometimes where it's like maybe a kid or the kids decide that on this day, like, oh, this particular option is actually the one I'd rather have more. And so they all rush and they take it, right? Um, Unfortunately, like the other side of the equation, right, is, again, as I talked about from like the financial sustainability point of view, right, we don't want to necessarily over order meals because the meals that go uneaten, we do not get reimbursed for, right? It's just basically an extra cost to the district. Um, so what I will say is it's something that we're aware of. I think over time, the nutrition clerks are able to get more and more accurate. So hopefully, as the year goes on, it should get better. But I am seeing a number of hands here saying that this ends up being an issue. So I think we'll have to take a look at it and see maybe what meals in particular aren't necessarily, having enough stock in a given day and see if we can maybe order more of those for people.
Yeah.
But just being super transparent, like that's basically the constraints that we're working under, right? It's like, how do we make sure we're not wasting a bunch of meals at the end of the day, but also providing all the meals that kids want on any given day?
hmm I mean, maybe even creating like a simple Google Forms survey, right? To kind of prep in advance. You can sort of use predictive analysis to try to, because my kids review the meal for the week and then they kind of go like, I want, a lunch on a Tuesday or on a Thursday because they potentially see something that they want to grab. And then the rest of the days are home lunches. So maybe like using a simple form, you can try to have a good idea of what kids might want to choose for the day. And I know my kids will definitely stick with their choice, like they won't change their mind. That could kind of help you, pre-order a certain amount of the items.
Definitely.
Gotcha.
And I appreciate your feedback. I think maybe one other operational constraint we're working within is that as it happens right now, Lunch Masters works with a lot of school districts, and we recognize that they have to order these things in advance. So our nutrition clerks tend to be a month out, half a month out placing the orders for the meals. So I think I appreciate hearing folks who are interested in volunteering. And at the end of this, we have a survey if you all want to get connected with your school nutrition clerk. I think that this is just where some of that predictive ordering it would be a great help from families to get to know your nutrition clerk and to be able to support them with that, because our nutrition clerks are already receiving counts of how many breakfasts are being recorded in the classroom and taking those notes and reviewing them. But it's just a lot of work to navigate within the confines of universal meals, where we have to know we have to have enough meals for everyone, but we can't take those orders in advance. So appreciate the generative ideas, and we'll let everyone keep giving feedback. I'm taking lots of notes.
Thank you. All right, Lynn, you're up next.
Hi. So I actually was going to bring up sort of the same topic around like more predictability about what meals are available, so we don't have to sort of spend time on my question. But I think the one thing I'll add to sort of the conversation that's been happening is that you know, when I understand sort of there is this kind of like predictive nature in each of the, sort of the lunch clerks are like thinking about like which meals to order. But something that's been basically what happens with my daughter is, again, she wants a meal and it's not available because it's out. She basically starts to like know that. And so, what's been happening is we've been packing her lunch because she sort of assumes that it won't be available because it hasn't been available for weeks. And that almost kind of creates the wrong feedback to the system in terms of like demand. And so I'm just wondering again, like that was just one anecdote, but if I imagine that might be happening with other parents, that might be a missing piece of data in terms of like, what meals actually have more demand. And so wondering if there's a way to even just fill that knowledge gap.
No, that's helpful. I think I will say this. I'm hearing the feedback loud and clear. I think there's definitely more that we can do on trying to better predict the number of lunches on any given day that kids are going to take. I will say as of right now, I think our NUT clerks are trying to do the best job that they can, but obviously I think maybe we as a district can do a better job in supporting them in that.
Thanks, Reese. All right, up next is Esther.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. And I was so glad to see just the performance metrics or the demand metrics from last year to this year. It's like I'm so grateful for the entire team for bringing this about, and thank you, Lunchmaster. Um, and anecdotally, I think just from what I can understand from our school, Cipriani, kids are genuinely enjoying the food. I hear a lot of like yummies, and whenever there are leftovers available for families to take home, they're really happy to be able to take them home. So thank you overall. My question though is, I think more broadly about feedback and the direction of the Universal Lunch Program at large. And this may be more of a question for Lunchmaster because you just touch across so many other districts. Um, but it seems like the Universal Lunch Program just, at first blush seems like such a wonderful idea. And I think we all have such an investment in just making sure that, food insecure kids and families are well supported. But I think there's also, the needs for families who generally could afford the lunches, and we're also getting a lot of support just in terms of being able to rely on a school meal program so that, mornings are busy. It's really, really hard to make lunches. It causes a lot of strain, a lot of stresses on families just to be able to prepare lunches like that. It also just I think what we've seen with the Universal Lunch Program is that there have just been all these unseen sort of effects from it. So like operational costs, like I don't have a sense of what the increase in budget is to have the additional subsidy of bringing on a vendor that, satisfies community needs. I think operationally also like, having the people available to execute this program, whatever infrastructure needs you need. And I don't know what opportunities there have been for at district level for Lunchmaster folks and other vendors to just speak to state legislation on like how this policy is going.
So I can take a few parts of that, and I'll leave it over to David. From the policy side, unfortunately, we have not really heard much from the state as to how they believe this program is going. I think I'm as interested as you are to see necessarily how kind of all the underlying metrics are going, but unfortunately, I either they have sent it to me and it's not gone to the right place, or I haven't seen it. But that's definitely something we can probably take a look into. There's another part of your question that I'm now blanking on, so I'm going to hand it off to David while I try and remember that.
The Public Policy Institute of California, I may be saying their full name wrong, but PPIC is the acronym, did a study post-COVID. These studies are always a little, it takes a couple of years for them to pull all the data together, but they showed that lunch, breakfast, and supper consumption was up, subsequent to universal meals. That's the sort of broad overarching data. Um, my I don't have anything sort of more broad or more representative or more valid than that. So, that's an indication that the state believes the program is working and will continue to fund it. Um, in terms of options that a school district has, you do have an option to go with a non-national school lunch program, right? Like that's always there, and there are vendors that do that. There are trade-offs, with that sort of model. And so our focus is very much to sort of optimize within the model of the National School Lunch Program. We try to push as much as we can on menu items, to meet kid preference. And we sort of measure it by the popularity of the menu items. And when they're not being ordered that often, then we try and change. So we do what we can to operate within the constraints of the program. I'm not sure if I fully answered your question, Esther, because the only data that I have seen that's broad and related to the state suggests that the program is successful. And everything I've heard from a lobbying point of view, not that I spent a lot of time looking at that, it's all, ChatGPT, is that, the California government is very committed to continuing universal meals.
Thank you. I don't think it was really a specific question. I just wanted to understand sort of how the program is being evaluated, and just what they foresee for the continuation, what the outlook of the program is. Because I think just one additional thing, just speaking of like success metrics, and this is neither here nor there, but one of the things we really discovered last year was that, understanding metrics from a meals taken or like a meals ordered and meals taken standpoint is not necessarily the correct metric. It's actual consumption, and that's really hard to actually capture. So yeah, neither here nor there, but just was curious about the outlook on the program in general. Thank you.
Thanks, Esther. All right, we have about 15 minutes left, and there's still a bunch of people who would like to, have questions or comments to give. Up next, I have Anne Snelling.
Okay, hang on a second. Wait, where am I? Down in the corner. Okay. Sorry,
Hi,
it's my whole team is here. Hi,
Awesome.
Cipriani. It's all the best. First of all, we'd like to just say, Lunch Masters, we love your lunches. The kids love your lunches, and we really wanted to go back to Lunch Masters because of your lunches. The last program we had, the kids would throw away all the food and they would take the chocolate milk. So I'm glad we don't have the chocolate milk, but we do have an issue with the breakfast. We have become, well, let me take a few steps back. We have become the food police. So if there's any way that the district could start looking at a model where it's after the bell, but before they come to the classroom, that would be amazing, because we do have issues here at school. And with all the sugar stuff in the classroom and kindergartners, the crumbs are everywhere. So I would like the district to look into a different kind of model and maybe look at what San Carlos has. They have a model where the kids eat when the gates open, and they extend a little bit more of their morning to have it outside on the picnic tables before they come to the classroom. Part of the problem that we have in kindergarten is the kids will take all the sugary stuff and they will put away the milk and the fruit, and you can't stop them from doing that. We also have kids that eat breakfast before they come to school, but see that it's a donut or a chocolate muffin, and they will eat seconds, and there's no way to stop them. And so our focus would be, what can we do to make it more nutritious? I'm curious as to which cereal has been purchased that's more nutritious because we haven't seen it yet. Maybe that's a new thing. Our school, if we could, I know our school would 100% support just three choices of bagel, sandwich, and cereal every day if we could get the cereal at a better sugar allotment. Um, we have seen the double eating, but also the sugar crashes. So what happens with our little guys is they load up on all this morning sugar and they crash out by recess where they're literally putting their head down on the picnic table, wanting to take a nap rather than play.
Thanks, Anne.
Hearing you loud and clear. Taking note.
Thank you. So I don't know if there's a way of shifting the ordering, but we definitely don't want chocolate muffins. We do not want the donuts. We don't want the lemon muffin. Like the sugar, they just see the instant sugar and they run for it. And there's no stopping them. As a parent, I would hate it to see my daughters pick up that stuff.
And I don't know if you saw in the comments, but Catherine did put a link to a feedback form. So please make sure that you click on that before you guys leave the meeting so you can provide that feedback also on that form if you would like.
Where's the form?
It's in the chat. She'll probably drop it. You want to drop it in there again, Catherine? Because oh, she already did. It's already there at the bottom, but there's a feedback form there also.
Okay,
But thank you guys for taking time out of your day to join us. We appreciate that.
We want our
By the way, the form does not let you select multiple schools if you have multiple children in multiple.
Thank you for letting us know that, Taj.
Yeah, we'd like our kids to be able to focus, and focus is best when it's not sugar.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lunch Masters.
Thank you. All right, Varsha, you are up next.
Hi, everyone. So I'm really happy that this meeting is happening today. First of all, of course, thank you, Catherine, and the Lunchmaster team, and Esther, of course, who's been so helpful with all this. I was a part of the nutrition team in the past, and obviously a parent too. So it's been really great, knowing what my kid eats and whatnot, So, but here's the thing. I am a vegetarian, part vegan. Now, I don't see much of the vegan options. I remember in the past, probably 3 years ago when we had Lunch Master, of course, there were quite a lot of vegan options, more than what you guys have right now. And it's been, I mean, vegetarian options, sure, they're great. We love it. I mean, I've tried some of them. My daughter has been like against all of it. She's like, "Oh, mom, can you just cook me a food like my meal today? I don't want to eat at schools." I'm like, "Okay, fine." But yeah, I mean, if that'll be really great. Like I'm looking at the menu for I've been going through all the menus since the past, and most of the pastas contain egg. So I mean, our family doesn't use egg or meat or seafoods or anything. Like we're like pure vegetarian. That's why I go for vegan every time because that's the safest one for us. So yeah, if it'll be really great if you could try to maybe have some pastas or like I see a veggie chow mein coming in February. So if that could if you guys can get something that doesn't contain egg, that'll be really helpful for at least for my daughter to have like I know she will have the mac and cheese, but there's some pastas that contain egg. So yeah, it'll be really helpful if that comes up in the future.
Thank you, Varsha. And I saw in our comments too, there was a few other people who commented on having more veg. I know you're talking about vegan, but also vegetarian options, and that
Yes.
some kids, it seems that some of them get taken before their children can come through. So thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
I have a quick feedback on the form. It only says my child eats lunch sometimes or breakfast sometimes. I can't select both. I can leave the comment in the comment also with the
Oh,
form.
yeah, thank you. Sorry, that must have been a form type error, but thank you for including it in the comments. Likewise, if you have
Can the,
students with multiple
Thank
schools.
you.
can the
All right.
form be corrected and resent to everyone using Parent Square? Because if it's only available during this chat, during this call, you're going to get very few responses.
No,
Yeah.
it definitely will be sent out along with a recording of today to the community.
Thank you. All right, Kaylin, thank you so much for being patient. It's your turn. Oh,
Hi, thank you.
oh, there you are. Hi, Kaylin.
I mean, just kind of my background, I'm a teacher. I have had, reduced meals as a student. My child, does rely on some of the lunches. We try to pack her lunch on the days that we know she's not going to eat whatever is on the menu. I also volunteer at the school pretty consistently and frequently, as I'm sure other people do too here. But I mean, I finish my volunteer time and I walk with her in her class to the lunch line, and it's been 5 minutes since lunch has started, and she's saying she didn't eat lunch that day. And I'm like, what happened? There's no food, whatever it was that she was going to get 5 minutes into lunch. And I'm like, how is that possible? The teacher and I know this has come up, but I'm just trying to give you a very concrete, specific example and time frame. 5 minutes into lunch and you're out of pasta, not cool. I don't understand how that happened. There was like one class ahead of her class, and she comes home and saying I had to have a bagel, which she doesn't even like, right? So I'm sure she had half of it, if that. We do then try to supplement and like pack her all these snacks to like last her through the day. If there's nothing at lunch that she is able to get and eat, then she's snacking. Which again, like we try to balance it, like because we want her to be exposed to different foods. Like, hey, you should try this kind of food. If that doesn't work out for you, then maybe you can have the bagel or whatever. If you look at it and it looks really unappetizing to you, fine. But we do try to also send her and try to expose her to the other menu items so that she can, hopefully expand her palate and things like that. So I know there's a whole lot of different, and I know, like, oh, if someone changes their mind, even though they had their mindset on having that menu of the day, but they're like, ooh, that one looks better, I'll have the pizza. I understand the constraints of trying to predict and order ahead. But I'm just very frustrated when she comes home and she's like, I didn't have anything. She's cranky, she's tired, and has low energy, cannot, like having her come home with that kind of mood, it just sets the tone for the rest of the day. And I know that she didn't have enough energy to even be fully engaged in her classroom. Again, I'm a teacher, so I know what happens when kids don't eat. I know what happens to my kid when they don't eat. And like that's different for everybody. And some people can just be better with, a few bites of something. Um, but she'll come home with like the apples that they have left over. I'm like, great. Was that all you had? Yeah. Oh, I mean, like, great that we had apples left over for kids to take home, but I don't want that to be her full meal of the day. So I know, again, this is all like discussed and talked about, but also like looking at the menu, I have no idea what the pasta explosion is. And every time, I'm like, did you try the pasta? She's like, no. I'm like, well, what did it look like so that I can know for next time, to expect, okay, well, pasta explosion, whatever, is not something you're gonna want. I just I was looking on the Lunch Masters the website trying to see if I could find a better description of what some of these things are, and I have no idea what they are. And like we're brand new to the school, we're kindergarten. I have no experience in pasta explosion. So just
Thank
for
you. So,
description,
oh, sorry. Thank you for that anecdote, Kaylin. Really appreciate it. We're less than 5 minutes left, and I still have some people who have been waiting to speak up. And I have next Naomi, and then after that, I have Ying, and then back to Shruti.
Hi, I wanted to just thank you all for all that you do. I'll make this really quick. I wrote this in the side column too, so you guys can have it. But basically, my son doesn't eat, he's vegetarian as well. This is kind of relating off to Barsha. He won't eat meat, and the pasta explosion is just not an option for him. He's quite picky, and oftentimes he comes home to me, he says, Mommy, they only had two bagel kits. He eats bagel kit every single day. This is what my son is eating. So I just wanted to express to you that it would be nice if maybe you guys can incorporate cheeses and more proteins to the meals because he's coming home and just snacking on chips. It's just been very, very tough to kind of wean him away from this kind of habit. And it's just started about a month ago. Um, Other than that, I like the program. I think it's great. My oldest daughter's picky as heck, but she eats it and she's so happy that it's back because she remembered it from before COVID. Like she's in fifth grade. And then my youngest one, I will encourage her to take all the things on the menu. She's the only one who drinks the milk. So maybe if you guys had like another drink option, I don't know if that's a possibility. I think you guys have water, if I'm correct, but maybe that would encourage the kids to drink all the thing, take a drink, take an apple. I will talk to them. And one more thing I had a suggestion with, which I put in the form as well. Um, with the carrots, maybe almond butter or something. So like a little kit, with a string cheese. And I think it'll encourage kids, maybe a little whole wheat cracker, popcorn. I don't know if you guys can have that. But what I'm saying is like a little kit might encourage kids to eat more um, than these pastas. I think it's great, lasagna. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Naomi. Thank
Thanks.
you. All right. Up next, we have Ying.
I just want to say thanks to the district and actually our Reese's team for doing such a great job, right, at implementing this like underfunded mandate, serving kids that are in need and also not in need alike. I do think, this year has been better. The quality of the food has been better. So my eighth grader at Ralston is happily eating his lunch most days. So thanks to Lunch Master for providing better tasting food. My concern is actually regarding to the plastic that's being used in doing lunch for hot lunch, especially when it's been heated up. And I believe Wen also shared the same concern in the chat. And I know it's not easy to, like to make it disposable and easy to use, but just want to bring that point and kind of voice my concern over that. Microplastic is really a concern out there. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Ying. All right. Next up, we have Danae.
Hello.
Hi, Danae.
Hi. So I'm from Fox and I volunteer for lunch almost every day and I'm on the PTA board. So I just wanted to I feel like Lunch Masters is getting a lot of complaints right now and I feel like they're doing a really good job. And there's a lot of options for food. You know, the thing is that the clerks, they can't order 300 slices of pizza. They can't order 300 hamburgers. And then if some of the kids don't eat it, when there's so much waste, they get in trouble. So, if we run out of food, it sounds kind of harsh, but maybe the kids need to hurry up a little bit more instead of playing for an extra 10 minutes, come get their lunch because all the grades, at least for Fox, come in at the same time, like from their recess. It's not class by class, it's by grade. So we'll have kids that straggle in 12 minutes after the bell and be mad that they don't have their number one choice. But they chose to stay on the playground for an extra 12 minutes after recess. And so they missed out on that choice. And we always say, this is what we have left. If you really want to make sure you get this choice, you need to make sure you get here at the beginning of mealtime, not when lunch is 5 minutes. It's going to be over in 5 minutes and you have to go back to class. So I just want to make sure parents are understanding that it's not just the clerk's fault or lunch master's fault that their kids aren't getting their pasta. It's that, we have to be careful with ordering and making sure we're not wasting money by ordering an excess amount of pasta and then having to dump it at the end of the day because kids that day decided they wanted the burrito. So we have to get, even numbers of food, maybe 30 pastas, 40 burritos. 20 bagel kits. Like we gotta order what we can and to make sure everybody does have something that they hopefully like. And if we run out, then I'm sorry, but then maybe next time you need to get here a little bit quicker if you're that adamant that that's the number one thing and the only thing that they're gonna want for lunch. So I just want to make sure we're being, supportive of our clerks and lunch masters, and they have a job to do, and that's also one of their jobs is to not waste money and be dumping 50 meals at the end of the day. So that's what I wanted to add. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Danae. Yes, all of our sites have different processes, and I can see how kids would want to stay on the yard and play a little bit more. So thank you for sharing that perspective with us. All right, we're over time, but we have one last question here from Wen. And then after we hear Wen's question, we can wrap it.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi.
Wen.
I have a few comments. So I'm a parent as well as a substitute nutrition clerk in the district. So first of all, I wanted to say that this year we've had a lot more variety in the lunch choices, which is really great to see. And also, I think that the food is it's tastier than the last school year, so which is wonderful. Two concerns. So one is about the microplastic, which was raised by Ying. Thank you. So a lot of our food, like the pizza, the hot dogs, the burgers, they are wrapped in this thin plastic film and they are placed in the oven for over an hour or so under high temperatures. And so just a concern about the plastic being leached into the food and the health concern for the students in the long term. And the other concern is about it's more environmental related. So we have the spoke and the napkins come together in a plastic wrap. And some students, they only use the spoke and not the napkins, and others use the napkins and not the spoke. So the other thing just get tossed out. And also there's a lot of wrapper end up littering the school grounds. And I'm sure it's a issue with the managing that by the custodians and also especially Redwood Shores, Sandpiper and Redwood Shore Elementary. They're very close to the waterways, so I'm sure some of those plastic might get blown into those waterways, which is a environmental concern. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Wen. Thank you. I think that is everybody. I don't see any new hands.
Oh, I
Being
didn't
raised.
get a chance to ask my question at all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see. I don't see it, but who's speaking? Who is that?
Sorry, my name is Taj.
Oh, I'm sorry, Taj. Please ask your
Okay,
question.
thank you so much. I know it's just coming to the end. I have three concerns. One, I have actually volunteered at lunchtime during Central Elementaries, and I know you mentioned that there are processes that are different between all the schools. However, I would appreciate if you could at least review what the processes are for each school, because at Central, what I've seen happen is the nutritional clerk actually reserves some meals for other grades, and there's never going to be enough. Which that means that there's a data point there available for us to be able to track and ask students what they would prefer to eat. And you could put that on the families to help you understand the data. The other thing is every month I review the menu and I can see that there are no changes in the number of order. The very last page of the menu that goes out to families in Parent Square has the number of items that have been ordered. If 70 pizzas have been ordered, but there's 400 children, you can tell there's not going to be enough. But that number never really changes. So is anyone really looking at this? I'm not sure. I can tell you that I'm looking at it and I don't think it's changing. The other thing is the vegetarian thing is a big concern for me because my children are not able to eat the food. They're not even vegan. So Varsha, I feel for you even further than myself. My kids are vegetarian, and one of my children at Ralston is actually on medication. He needs to be able to eat, but he can't because there's no vegetarian food for him when he gets there. And he's not playing. I heard the other comment loud and clear. He's not playing. He's going straight to the line when it's his turn. The food is either being held back or there's just not enough food being ordered. So that tells me that somebody is not looking at the data points. That's the end of my rant.
Thank you, Taj, and thank you for being so patient and speaking up when I didn't see that your hand was raised. I appreciate that. All right, so now I think we're to the end of our questions and feedback. I'm going to, first of all, thank you everyone for being such active participants in this. I think we got some really great perspectives and feedback and wonderful questions, and the team will definitely be looking through all of that in the coming days and weeks ahead. Catherine, I think I throw it back to you at this point.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for the feedback. We really appreciate it. And I think to the point, maybe Taj, just in a response to your last question, I think maybe we can follow up on offline, but we'll definitely be sharing out our Google Form survey with the broader Parent Square community and reflecting on how we can make some actionable next steps. So thank you so much for giving us all this feedback to think on and figure out how to take some action on. And with that, I guess have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.